Hey guys, it's Laura. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I do videos on luxury handbags, shoes, shopping, topics along those lines. So if those are topics that interest you, please take a second to subscribe to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how to tell if your classic flap is defective. This video is very much inspired by a lot of Facebook groups that I actually belong to. I think the only reason that I'm still on Facebook these days is because I'm part of these luxury groups on Facebook, and a lot of the times I see people buying bags and feeling very concerned about the state of their bag. A lot of the common questions are asking if something is normal, if their bag is defective, and so I kind of wanted to talk about some of the things that I have seen and what to do in case your bag is defective. So first and foremost, I think it's very important to realize that these bags, they're not 100% handmade like say an Hermes bag is. There are stages of the process where a sewing machine is used to stitch the bag together and to do the quilting that we all love on Chanel bags. And from the research that I have done, they don't tell you step by step what their process is that I've at least seen, which makes sense. They don't want people copying their process. It's their intellectual property. But I did find that they use special sewing machines to sew the bags. So there is somebody at the Chanel factory sewing these with the machine and doing other portions of it by hand. So you're not ever going to, I think, find like a perfect Chanel bag. I don't know that that exists. If you look hard enough, you will always find something that is slightly off or not 100% level. I mean, I think if you took a level to the majority of these flaps, they wouldn't be 100% level, and that's okay. I think there's a difference between perfect and bad craftsmanship. So one of the most commonly asked questions in these groups is one that's done by a lot of first-time Chanel buyers, and it's one that I did as well when I bought my first classic flap, and I was a little confused by the chain. And let me show you what it is that I'm talking about. So if you look at the chain, you can see that there is a end of leather here. Let me see if I can get that to focus for you guys. There you go. So there's going to be an end piece of the leather and then the other end piece over here. This is normal. This is how the chain is done because the leather is woven through the chain, and this is just where it naturally ends and is stitched together. This is the common question that I see a lot of first-time buyers asking, and they get worried that it is a flaw or that their bag was poorly constructed. But if this is a question you have about your bag, then rest assured that this is normal. Now, another really common question that I see a lot of people asking usually has to do with the flap. When you're looking at these bags, I think the most important step that you can take is when you're actually in the boutique. Take a minute to really look at the bag, see if there's any flaws that you can see, because I think that is the best time to notice flaws is in the boutique. Sometimes it's hard. I think we get really excited, especially when we found a color that might be harder to get and you have your hands on it in the store and you get so excited, you take it home and then you realize that there are things about the bag that you missed and don't like. And then I think that's when it can get a little bit more complicated. So back to the flap, you want to make sure that it's a pretty level, even flap. Now, I think if you were to take an actual level to the majority of these flaps, they're not going to be 100% straight, but you want one that looks straight, that looks nice. I have seen some really bad, wonky, crooked flaps where people joke that the bag looks like it's drunk. That is a bag that you definitely want to avoid. Unfortunately, maybe you found it, it's the last one in a certain color, and some people, you know, they make the concession and they take the bag anyway. That's not something that I would personally do. I know that we are spending a lot of money on these bags. For some people, they may consider it to be an investment or a placeholder of wealth, so you want to make sure that your bag is in the best condition possible. One of the other things that you should look at in the store is really the stitching. Are there any pop stitches? Is the stitching crooked? I have seen some posts where if you look at this corner stitching here, it is completely jagged. Mine is fairly good. I think it's pretty straight for something that has been done by a craftsman in a factory. So I would not say that my corners have any defect, but I have seen some pretty bad ones. So make sure you're checking those corners as well as the stitching itself on the bag. And of course, if you ever do find a defect on your bag after you buy it, you can take it into Chanel for a repair, but that's a bit of a catch-22 that I will get into later. Now, one of the other questions that I see commonly asked in these groups has to do with the interior of classic flaps. I have here my black caviar classic flap with the classic iconic burgundy interior lining. Now, something that I do want to mention about the interior of these bags is they are sewn together up here, the two pieces of leather. However, inside this piece, the burgundy lining, it's not glued down to the black portion of the leather. So if you look at that bottom piece, it's not glued down. When I got this bag, it was looser, it was less flush to the bottom, and sometimes people mention that they feel sort of like an air pocket or a bubble. I think that is a little normal to an extent. If you have a very big air pocket, it's not normal, but if you feel a little bit of air under there, like you feel like maybe, oh, my bag is not glued down, that part is normal. Now, I have seen people post in the past that their lining actually has bubbles itself, so the burgundy portion, you can see like small bubbles along the leather. If that is happening, that is not normal. Now back to the chain, another common defect I see people talking about is if you see here on the side of the chain, let me get this into focus. Okay, can you see that the leather is like glued, like it's been folded over and it's glued? That's normal. What's not normal is if those pieces of leather are coming undone and they're pulling apart. That would be a definite defect that you would want to look at. I mean, I think it's something that they can fix, but just keep in mind anytime that you do send your bag in to be fixed, it can be a while before you get it back. Something else that you really want to look for, especially when it comes to light colored bags like my beige Claire here and maybe like a light pink, is sometimes you will find tiny black dots in the leather. These black dots, I'm not sure exactly what they are. They kind of look like freckles, and they very well can be. I mean, at the end of the day, this is skin. Skin has imperfections. It has wrinkles and freckles and acne and things like that. So yeah, just keep an eye out for those things. Really take a look at the bag, and if the bag just isn't meeting your standards, you can always ask and see if they have another one. And if they don't be afraid to walk away, even if it's a color that you've been looking for a long time, because at the end of the day, you're just not going to be happy, and there are some things that cannot be fixed, like black dots. Another common defect are the back pockets. Now the back pockets should be straight on there, but sometimes you see very misaligned pockets. Sometimes they're completely skewed to one side, they're crooked. So check the pocket. You want to make sure that it is, like the flap, fairly straight, that it doesn't look lopsided to you. I mean, of course, if we were to take a level to some of these bags, I don't know if they would be perfectly level, but you know, you want a good looking pocket. You want it to be aligned. You also want your hardware to be straight. Sometimes I see the double C logo completely off to the side, lopsided. You don't want that either. When we're buying these bags, I feel like we should treat it like when we're buying or leasing a new car. Sure, when we're getting a new car, we're really excited, but what do? We sit in it, we test drive it, we look at all the features and accessories and really see if we like how it drives and if it fits the lifestyle that we lead, and the bag should be no different. Put your stuff in it. If the bag has something you don't like about it, maybe you don't like the particular feel of the leather. I remember when I bought my very first Chanel bag, which was that black caviar classic flap, the first one that they brought to me, the leather felt a little dry. It felt like a lot of people had used it and tried it on, and it just didn't feel brand new. So I asked for another one. Luckily they had another one, and it just had a much better feel for me, and that's the one I ended up taking home. And so I feel like do the same, you know, look at the bag, put your stuff in it, test drive the bag before making your decision. A few more comments on the stitching that you should look for when buying these bags is in here. Can you guys see that stitch right there? So this is a stitch that attaches the double flap and the outer flap together on these bags. Sometimes I see that this stitch is popped and broken, and it seems like it would be an easy fix, and it should be, but there have been people on YouTube that I see that the stitch pops for them and they wind up getting a totally new bag as a replacement. So you want to make sure that those stitches look good, they look sturdy, and that they're not broken. Also, when you look at the bag, the stitching of the quilts from this flap to the back and then from the pocket to the rest of the bag should line up like this. I have seen sometimes where they're not completely aligned, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a fake bag. So I just wanted to point that out. If you are looking at a pre-loved bag and you feel like the quilting might slightly be off, but everything else looks good, I would highly recommend getting it authenticated before purchasing, because that is something else that people really look out for. They look for the lining of the bag to line up from piece to piece. Also, on these classic flaps, a lot of them have this edge stitching and then a lot of them don't. So all of the bags from the permanent line in Caviar have this edge stitching, but then, for example, my lambskin beige Claire does not have the edge stitching, even though it's from the permanent collection. And a lot of times when you get like these seasonal Caviar bags, you won't have this edge stitching, but then sometimes you do. So it really varies season to season. So sometimes I think people get a little confused by that and they ask, you know, why doesn't my bag have edge stitching, or why does it? Is this a defect? It's not a defect, it just varies permanent collection versus seasonal, and then it varies season to season. For example, these are my two lambskin Chanel classic flaps. This one is a seasonal bag. I believe it's from 20S. And it does have the edge stitching even though it's a lambskin bag. And then this is my beige Claire from the permanent line. It does not have edge stitching. So it's just an example of variations that you can get bag to bag, season to season, and it can come down to personal preference. I personally don't care if my bag has edge stitching or not, but some people really love the edge stitching while other people really love the look without it. It's just personal taste. Now I want to go back to what to do if you have a defective bag and Chanel's return and exchange policy. Now this is something that I've noticed this season in 22A, and for some reason on a lot of the Caviar bags this season, the leather is just, it's not good. Now I'm going to pop a picture up here that I found on one of the Facebook groups that somebody shared. And as you can see, it's Caviar leather. When they open it up, it is completely wrinkled and bumpy. This is not normal. I would say this is a defective bag. Now over time with Caviar and any leather bag, any bag that you open repeatedly, it just might naturally get wrinkling. But you know, this is my bag that I've had for a few years now. If I go to an extreme, you can see some wrinkling like that, but that bag was just brand new. It was not good. If that was me and I was looking at that bag, especially in that color, I would, you know, reject it. I wouldn't buy it. And I think that's the first step of protecting yourself from a defective bag. Really, like I've mentioned several times in this video, look it over and make sure that you aren't finding any major defects. Let's talk about the repair process. So say that you have bought a bag, you really love it, you've come home and you realize there is something wrong with the bag, or maybe your return window has come and gone, or it's a few years down the road, your bag is still under the Chanel warranty, which is now 5 years from your purchase date, and you want to take the bag in for repair. I think it's important to be aware that when you send the bag for repair, you're probably not going to see that bag for a few months. Another thing that I see very commonly happening is you drop off your bag for repair, it gets sent to the repair shop or factory in France, and then you get a call from your SA, you know, and they say, so sorry, but unfortunately this bag cannot be repaired. And what they'll often do is they will give you store credit so that you can get a bag as a replacement. That sounds nice, but it's going to be at the price that you purchased the bag. So say you bought a classic flap and that's what you're getting fixed. I bought my last beige classic flap for $6,800. Today, that bag sells for $8,800 because of the crazy price increases. Now, the store credit that they would give me would be for the $6,800, and I would have to make up the extra $2,000 or buy something that falls within that store credit. And I know that this has happened to a lot of people, especially a lot of people that I've personally watched on YouTube, and they have not been happy about this, and understandably so. I would not be happy either. I think if the bag is damaged and they can't fix it and it falls within their warranty, then it should be an even exchange. If they've changed that policy, let me know, but as far as I know, that's how it goes, and I don't think that that is the best customer service personally. I've also seen this policy affect people in the sense of they are exchanging within the 14-day window, but there are no more bags of that color, and so they're stuck waiting for one to come in. And if one comes in before the next price increase, fine. But if one comes in after, they're also going to be stuck paying the difference. So guys, that's it for today's video. If you have any questions about your Chanel bag, you're not sure if something is normal or if it's a defect, I hope this video might have helped answer some of those questions for you. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them if I know the answer. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps small content creators like myself, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!